Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Qur'an girl here with a brand new lesson. Today we will be doing Nabr and Iltiqaa As Sakinain. So I ran out of Sharpie marker because all my Sharpie markers are packed in a bag. We are planning to move soon, inshallah, so the scenery is going to change. But inshallah we'll keep up with the lessons. But for now, the one Sharpie marker that I had out ran out overnight. So unfortunately, I have these instead written, sorry, not Sharpie markers, Expo markers. So instead I wrote these with Sharpie markers on paper. And hopefully you'll be able to see them. I can try and bring these a little bit closer. Whoops. Okay. I think my board's ready to be packed too. But here we are for now. Alright, that's better. I think that's a lot better. Okay, so what we're going to do first is you see the word Nabr. And Nabr is where you are putting pressure on a letter that is a specific type of, in 5 specific cases, you're going to put more pressure on a letter, which is going to give it an inflection of sound. And the reason we would do this is 5 different reasons to do what we call Nabr. The first one is when you have a shadda at the end of a word, then you want to be able to show that shadda is there, right? So if I want to say, for example, the word wadd, wadda is love. And it was just Valentine's Day the other day, so happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Wadd is got a shadda at the end, and that means there's 2 dals. Remember, the first one being a sukoon and the second one being a fatha. You want to make sure that you don't just say wadda kathirun, right? You have to say wadda, wadda. See how there's an inflection of sound? That is called Nabr. And that is what we have to do, put pressure on that letter so as to give an inflection of the sound. And the second one, the second case, is if you have a ya mushaddada or a waw mushaddada in the middle of a word. Remember yesterday we went over some rules like rule of tamkeen, right? Where I gave you examples with ya, but it can also happen with waw. The same thing can happen. Let me give you an example of tamkeen with a waw, because I don't think I did that yesterday. But an example of a tamkeen with a waw would be, let's see, let me find an example. Remember, tamkeen is when you have the same letter, the yas coming back to back. And remember that there were 2 examples. You're either going to have the like hayyitum was tamkeen, where it had a ya with a shadda and a kasra following another ya, or you had a madya followed by another ya. So fi yawmi was the example for that we gave, and in that you give tamkeen because you want them to be strong, each of the sounds to be strong. You don't want any merging to happen there, right? And an example in the case of waw for the tamkeen would be, for example, قالوا وقبلوا, قالوا وقبلوا. You don't want the wows to get disappeared, right? So that's also the case. Tamkeen can also happen with waw, where you say قالوا و, but you don't break it. You're still reciting. You're just making sure that there's tamkeen. قالوا وقبلوا, right? So the waw and the ya, they can get melted away and evaporated, poof. So you have also another rule called Nabr, which makes sure that they are pronounced. In Arabic, it's very important that every letter and every haraka has its own, it has its own value, it has its own purpose. And so we never want anything to disappear, right? We have certain rules where we had idgham and ikhfa and things like that, but we always have to follow these rules so that each letter has its due. Okay? So with waw shadda and ya shadda in the middle of a word, if we did not pronounce it with nabr, it would end up sounding like a mad sound or a lean sound. So an example would be ayyaman. See when I say ayyaman, you can actually hear that little inflection of sound in the ya. Ayyaman. See? Otherwise it would just be ayyaman. And that would be incorrect. Third rule for nabr is when you have a mushaddada letter after a mad letter. What do we call that? We call that mad lazim, right? We lengthen it 6 times. So when you have a mushaddada letter after a mad letter, the reason that you want to do that is so that the sukoon of the shadda is heard. Remember, shadda is always a sukoon letter followed by the same letter with a vowel on it, with a haraka on it. So, for example, we have ضَالًّا. You could hear the clear inflection there. ضَالًّا. So right at the end of the lengthening, you're going to inflect. And then we have fourth case where we stop on a hamza so that it can be heard. Again, because you don't want any letter disappearing, you don't want any letter going poof. We have to pronounce every single thing correctly with its correct rules. So if we stop on the word ma, then you have to say right? There are some surahs in the Qur'an where you will find, because of the pattern, there's repetition and it'll end in a certain sound. Like even if it, I can't think of one offhand, but there you might find surahs that end in the letter hamza in quite a few verses, one after the other. Very important that you pronounce that hamza and say ma. Do the nabr so that inflection shows that there is a hamza there that you are stopping on. Or if you are stopping in the middle of a sentence on a word with hamza, the same would apply. The fifth case is basically when you are dropping the alif in dual form of a verb to avoid the meeting of 2 seconds, then you are going to make nabr on the fatha. What does this mean? Well, right after I go through nabr, we're going to talk about the rules of the meeting of 2 seconds. And basically, if you have 2 sukoon letters, then they would again disappear, right? Like, how do you pronounce 2 sukoon letters? Like, how do you make a sound for each one when, they're kind of going silent on you with their sukoons? So you cannot have 2 sukoons. However, back to back, but you actually do. When you're writing words, you do have 2 sukoons. It's just in the recitation, how do you deal with that, right? And that's what we learn about with Tajweed. So one of such cases when that would happen, when 2 sukoons would meet, one of such cases is, for example, in this example, وَقَالَ الْحَمْدُ, right? Now normally qala doesn't have this on it, right? It doesn't have this extra alif. It's just qa and then with a regular lam, right? Looking for my marker, right? So normally, if we are writing qala, we would, and I'm writing it sideways, so bear with me. But normally, if we're writing qala, it would just look like that, right? But in this example, we have qala with an alif after the lam. What's going on there? What's going on there is it's showing that there are 2 people. 2 people are saying alhamdu, right? Qala alhamdu. So instead of saying he said alhamdu, we're saying they said. 2 people said alhamdu. So, well, in this case, if we were just reciting it like this, qala and then alhamdu, it would just sound like, okay, well, he said alhamdu. But when we're saying 2 people said, and because we have 2 sukoons, we have a sukoon here on the alhamdu, and then we have a sukoon here on the alif that is following the lam, right? Like this would be a qala, and that one, because it's in dual form, it has qala, and then the alif after it is as sukoon, because really it's qala, qala. It's a mad. If you were to say it by itself, for the dual form, it would be qala. So if we just pronounce this qala alhamdu, then you would never hear that it was actually meant to be two people. So in this case, you're going to pronounce it with nabr, and you're going to say qalal, qalal, qalal. You have to make an inflection of sound. Qalal. It doesn't matter which pitch you're going with, but you have to show the inflection of sound. So rather than qalal hamdu, which would be one, you would say qalal, qalal. You have to show some kind of inflection. Otherwise, it just shows like it's one, right? And this inflection is a tricky thing. I've had to practice a lot. I hope I'm getting it right when I'm trying to show an inflection. If you can show even more of inflection, kudos to you. So that's the story about Nabr. And it leads us right into Iltiqaa As Sakinain, which is the meeting of two sukoon, which is in that example, قال الحمد لله, because that is an example of Iltiqaa As Sakinain. And what is Iltiqaa As Sakinain? Iltiqaa As Sakinain is basically when you have two sukoons that are meeting. Now, in that case, when you have two sukoons meeting, you can't pronounce them both. So what do? Well, where this happens is in two cases, right? You have it where the first is a mad letter, and in a mad letter we know inherently this is sukoon. Like the example we just did, qala alhamdu, right? That was a mad letter. It was a lam with an alif. Or for example, fi is a mad letter, right? Fi, because it has the kasra followed by a ya, so ya becomes a maddiya. So in this case, when the first letter is a mad, and then you have another one that's sukoon. So in this example, you have a fi with a ya, which obviously was going to have a sukoon because it's a mad, and then you have al-Madina, al-Madina. So you're going to say fil Madina, fil Madina, right? What happened? Fil Madina versus if I was to say each letter separately, fi al-Madina. See how the mud disappears when I join them together? Fil Madina. So that is the first rule of Iltiqaa As Sakinain, that when the first word is a maddiya, or basically when the two are meeting, when the two seconds are meeting, if the first of the two letters is a maddiya letter, like in the case of fi or qala, then you're going to have to drop that sound. So you're just going to say fil Madina or qala al-hamdu. Now in the case of qala al-hamdu, you did a nabr because you had to show that there were two. Okay? In this case, we do not have to do nabr because we are not showing a dual form of anything. This is just Iltiqaa As Sakinain. This is just what do we do when the two sukoons meet. So if the first is a maddiya and the second one isn't, then you drop the mad sound. You're going to say fil Madina. The second case for Iltiqaa As Sakinain is when the first is not a maddiya letter. Oh, there's my kitty up there. Hello, Luna. Luna's walking across the world, as you can see. She's making her way across the world there. Alright, okay, back to our class. The second case is when the letter is not a mid letter. And so in that case, you will have a word like min Allah, right? In min Allah, you have noon sukoon. And then you have, in Allah, you have the al, right? A lam qamariya. So you have the sukoon on the lam qamariya. But when we see it in the Qur'an and when we recite it, both, we're not going to see min Allah. We're not even going to see it written that way. We're going to see min Allah. So really, this is for us to know that the word is actually min. Min, there's no word like minna. in Arabic. Okay, and there's no word like let's see. There's a whole bunch of these examples. Let me pull up my handy dandy book. All right, let's see. So basically we have, for example, قل in command form, right? Whenever you're doing a fi'l amr, a command, it's always going to be lightest, right? And the lightest is always going to be sukoon. قل, say, right? And then you're going to basically have a word after it. So if you were to say قل even here, it would be قل, right? And then the word Allah. But if you're joining those two words and saying min and Allah or قل and Allah, you are going to always have to, in Tajweed, recite it with a haraka on that first sukoon letter. She's doing her little antics up there. It's just really cute. She's distracting me. Okay. So basically, that's the rule. The second rule for Iltiqaa As Sakinain is that when the first of the two words is basically not a madiyah or a letter, then you are going to have to put some kind of a haraka on it. So it's not going to stay a sukoon anymore, it's going to have a haraka. So in this case it would be min Allah, or you would say qulillah, right? If you were doing qul and then Allah, qulillah. Now see how we had min Allah or qulillah. Basically you can put any haraka on that first letter that makes it sound appropriate when connecting. All right. So for that, we haven't learned any rules yet of the connection. When do we know what kind of haraka? But when you look in the Quran, it's actually going to show you those harakat. So you're not going to have to put them there. It's just for you to know that the original word, whenever you have a fi'al amr, whenever you have basically ism mawsool, whenever you have even dhamir is basically pronouns like kum or hum at the end of a word, and you're going to pronounce it as kuma or something like that. That was not the original word. Okay, so that's basically Iltiqaa As Sakinain. Now this you will see in the Quran. You will see fi al-Madina. You're just, when you're pronouncing, you're not going to say fi al-Madina, you're going to say fil Madina. And then with this one, I'm quite sure that you are basically going to see it like min Allah, but really there was a sukoon there and you didn't pronounce it. Some other examples would be qul illahumma. Again, the qul would not have had a kasra on it because it's a command. Or farji'il basara, farji'il basara, you would not have had an I, you would just have farji' and al-basara. Okay, so when pronouncing and when you see it in the Quran, it'll be shown farji'il basara, and that's just for you to know that really there was two sukoon meeting there. So inshallah, hopefully you might need to review through this particular lesson. It does have very particular nuances that have not been spoken of before, that might be very new to you. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments section. Any comments, any other ideas, anything that you would like to share at all, I welcome them. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.